I have a confession. I've been using healthcare as my main excuse not to move forward with this next chapter of my life. I was terrified, based on all the information I thought I knew, that healthcare was going to be unaffordable. It was going to be the one showstopper for me to retire or to move to the next chapter before age 65. What I discovered as I was creating this series, because this series is nothing more than you coming along with me as I am creating my path forward to how I am going to manage my health care, my husband's health care costs before age 65. So come on, let's dive into this. I am not a healthcare expert. I am not a healthcare cost expert, because there's a difference between healthcare and healthcare cost. And healthcare cost, what I've discovered, is not simply what you pay for your insurance. It is an entire buffet of things that we're already doing, and each video is going to start unpacking this. I am simply a woman over 50 who is tired, burnout, ready to figure out if I can move into this next chapter, whether you call it retirement or I call it next chapter with a side hustle, because I enjoy making money, really enjoy making money. But if my side hustles never bring me another dollar, I need to know that I can afford to leave a full-time job. This is my last job, along with its paycheck and benefits, and support myself and make sure my husband and I are covered. So let's get into these next videos. Why does healthcare and healthcare costs keep women working too long? This is where I started. This is probably where you're starting. And I started off with the belief that healthcare cost was going to keep me from being able to leave a full-time job or any job with benefits before age 65. What I discovered, that's another lie. Whether we have just told it to ourselves or we've listened to the stories, the horror stories on the street of people who have healthcare costs that completely derail their retirement. Those extreme cases that always go to urban legend. Come on, let's watch this video. So you're thinking about retiring, whether it's early, whether it's fluid, glide, hybrid, whatever. But when you stopped working for the man, all of a sudden there's a white elephant in the room. And that white elephant, called healthcare cost, keeps a lot of us, Gen Xers and women, working way too long out of ignorance. The fear of healthcare cost has kept us working longer, not just in the amount of years and the amount of effort or the amount of jobs, but it has prevented us from even considering retirement, more so than the lack of money and preparation financially has ever kept us from doing. For me, I know it's one of the biggest reasons I'm going a little bit on steroids, trying to figure out, am I prepared? Do I have enough? How much more do I need to pile up? What size cash fund do I have? What do I need to start doing now to address my healthcare cost over time to ensure that I can afford it? Yeah, we've all heard the nightmare stories out there. In this video, we're going to unpack some of the myths, some of the urban legends, and figure out how we can actually get the facts and the information we need to make the best decision for us. So what if healthcare really isn't this giant boogeyman, this giant monster we've been led to believe? What if it's not, and it shouldn't be, the last thing holding you back from taking the next step into this chapter of our lives? So yeah, I thought healthcare was going to be the one thing to keep me from retiring either early or at all before age 65 in Medicare, regardless of how much attention and planning and side hustles and income streams I've created or am creating. I thought it's going to be the one thing that holds me back. The one thing I'm too afraid of to face and to figure out how I can overcome it. Because with the urban legends we've all heard, because we've all got a friend who has a cousin or an aunt who lost everything because of one health situation. We've all got that. We've all heard that. It's in every sitcom. It's in every news story. The fear-based information we've been provided should stop directing our actions now. If we don't find the facts, if we don't get the right information for us, just like your retirement number that you need is completely individualized to you, your healthcare cost and your healthcare needs is as well. And the things that you can do now in preparation and the things that you'll do wisely throughout your next chapter are all very individualized to you. So let's talk about this, because it's time to quit dancing around it. It shouldn't be one of those topics at the dinner table growing up that you whispered, hey, did you hear so-and-so entered menopause? Did you see her so-and-so? Did you hear that so-and-so had this medical event and can't retire now? No, it should not be the hush-hush, don't talk about it in mixed company subject matter. Most of what we believe about healthcare after we leave a job who is providing benefits, or for those of us who have always had to pay our own healthcare costs because we were self-employed, etc., regardless of how you have historically had health insurance or paid for your health care, the fear-mongering stories have had an impact on your move in every decision, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. It makes for interesting conversation topics. The catastrophe of healthcare destroying the planet, no, destroying the planet, but destroying people's retirement budgets. How one heart attack wiped them out and they all had to go back to work. It makes really entertaining conversations. We all enjoy a good horror story. We do. But the reality of it is it's not necessarily that way, nor do you have to plan your retirement and your next steps around these overinflated, sensationalized stories until you get the facts. And then on the other side of that is the complete silence. For those among us who have actually had to go through some of these catastrophic events, who've had to face horrible medical situations within their family, or maybe it's their parents, etc., we never talk about the financial portion of it in mixed company. It's not just a Southern thing. This is universal. Case in point, my dad, when he first started having his first health events, which were about 15 years before he finally had a health event he couldn't overcome, we'll call it that. But he was terrified. Absolutely terrified. He actually, before he went into the hospital under a significant need to get there in an emergency situation, started calling neighbors wanting to sell off property because he didn't know how he's going to afford this. Yes, did he have health insurance? He did. He was on Medicare health insurance at that point, but he had never truly dug in and understood what his insurance was going to cover in the event of an emergency or a dire situation. So all he had to go on were all those stories he'd heard his entire life of how this was about to wipe him out. And that was his main concern going into that. It wasn't, I need to get better. I need to think of my family. I want to dance at my niece's wedding. No, it was the cost. So let's prepare in advance with figuring out what it truly costs for our health insurance after we leave our employment, what that health insurance really covers, because now that it's no longer being given to us on a silver platter for those of us who have had policies through our employers, we don't necessarily have an HR team to call. We don't. We can call the insurance companies, but let's understand it on the front end before we make the selection of which policy that we want to buy into. It may be a few dollars more a month, but the coverage, the significant peace of mind you may get with this policy versus the bare bones bottom rung policy might make more sense for you. So this is going to be this series. We're going to start diving into how we can get this education, figure out for ourselves what the actual cost is going to be. So keep coming back. This is a 7-day series, and this is video number 1. By taking action to educate yourself, to dive in, action is going to provide you clarity. And clarity based on your numbers, because by this point you've already run your numbers. You know what you currently need per month, and you know how that translates into retirement, which a key portion of that is your healthcare cost. Healthcare cost is not just your insurance policy. It's your prescriptions, it's your supplements, it's your fitness regime, it's your gym memberships, everything that goes into shoring up and creating the healthiest you as possible. That's all part of the healthcare cost. But this series, we're talking about what you're actually going to pay out of pocket for your insurance, your prescriptions, and your supplements if you're on those, or if you choose to be on those. Because a lot of us, we have gone off the grid. We have not the grid. We have gone off. We have gone insane. I was guilty of this as well with the supplements that we choose to take, chasing down the next TikTok miracle cure. We need to get wise about that. We'll talk about that in a later episode. And I know this feels overwhelming. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot for you to learn. There's a lot for you to research on your own, especially now, because you have a runway to get all of this understanding in bite-sized consumable chunks ready for you to action. But even partial information is going to take the mystery and the anxiety away from this. It is just another toll gate on the road to the next chapter of your life that you have to prepare for, pass through, and emerge from wiser, better educated, and empowered to know what your number is going to be. So we're going to ask a lot of questions, and those questions are going to provide clarity and answers for us, which is going to give us comfort and peace knowing that we can manage this. If this topic has you on edge, if you are concerned about what healthcare insurance is going to cost, and then the whole gambit of healthcare if you were to leave your employer, don't let that be the one reason. Don't let that be the sole reason you're not moving forward with your retirement or your transition into this next chapter of life, even if you don't plan to fully retire. You need to empower yourself with information. Leave me a comment down below. I don't want this to be the reason I can't move forward. I'm tired of being frozen. I have had horror stories in my life about this. Share it with us, because we all need to understand we're not the only one afraid of this. And yeah, it's a non-fact-based fear. With that said, I am Jenny. I got a little to say about a lot of stuff. This is a 7-day series, all talking about healthcare and healthcare cost. At the end, we'll have a YouTube live, so y'all keep coming back. Stop recording. This next video is all about the fact that we've got options, and we may not have even been aware some of these options existed, and that they're affordable, at least more so than what we've been led to believe or chosen to believe based on those same urban legends. What if one simple question could save you thousands? When it comes to healthcare cost, there's one thing that we can control, that we can question, that we can ask for a better price on. It's not necessarily haggling, it's asking the right questions, and it could save you thousands. Asking the right questions has saved me thousands over my adult life, and nobody ever told me I could do this. It was out of necessity. Prescriptions are not all created equal. Our entire life they haven't been, but in retirement, do the right thing and ask the right questions. I sat back and I watched my father and his wife just smile and nod and take instruction from the medical establishment. Never once questioning, never once asking for more information about any of the diagnoses, procedures, and especially about the prescriptions. They just took what they were given, they took it to their pharmacy, and they just said, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. This is what my doctor wants. My doctor knows best. And I agree. Doctors are phenomenally intelligent, well-educated, and generally know best. But not all doctors have broken out of the mold of big pharma and other influences that lead them to prescribe the latest and greatest, things that I call boutique medicines. So back in my early 40s, when I began to get my life and my health in order so that I could live the best years yet, And that meant laying down a lot of bad habits and addressing things I had put off for years. But I was a contractor at the time, and I was always employed at the pleasure of whatever project manager I was working for. And in my industry, that's feast or famine. So to prepare for the famines, because it's going to come, I always made sure when my doctors put me on a prescription that it was something I could afford if I had no health insurance at all, which generally meant, is there an alternative brand? Is there is there a generic, or genetic, that's, scratch that. Is there a generic medicine for this? Do I need to take this plus this? And sometimes there's even combinations of meds that are much lower cost that can get the same effect. So learn to ask the questions. It is your responsibility to take care of you. The doctors are also taking care of you, but they're not as concerned about your pocketbook and your retirement funds and the duration of your money as you are. So you've got to be a good steward of that and proactive. Don't just sit back and roll over and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, whatever you say, that's what I'm going to take. Because I don't know if you've ever been given a prescription and taken it to the pharmacy to find out what it's going to cost you, but it can be jaw-dropping. When we think about retirement, we are always thinking about how much money have I saved? How much money does it take for me to live if I'm going to live to, my case, 93? That's my goal. That's the target. If my money makes it to 93, then I've done a great job. I do plan to go out net zero, so if the markets are kind to me, about the time I hit 90, I'm going on some spending splurges, giving the money away like I'm a millionaire trying to go broke. But when it comes to everything that's in retirement, you've got to plan for the littles and the bigs. Now, down in the description, there is a free for you workbook, Master Your Money Plan, and there's also another workbook for life experiences to income for those of us who aren't going to fully retire, but we want to hybrid retire. But in the workbooks, you are looking at all your expenses, not just your power and your mortgage and your transportation cost and your food, everything that goes into how you live right now and what you're going to need for retirement. And prescriptions cost and supplement cost, and this is your multivitamins, etc., all of that needs to be accounted for in your plan, because when you get to retirement, you can't afford to be surprised that, oh my goodness, I pay $50 a month for this prescription, and by goodness, I can afford that. But if you had 5 of those that all cost $50 a piece, that's a chunk of change when you didn't plan for it. So we have to ask the better questions. We have to encourage alternative medicines and or combinations. Can it go to a compound pharmacy? There's a question to ask. So your health care cost in retirement, whether you're retiring early or at age 65, 67, all have to be taken into account. Down in the description as well, I have the Retirement Reality Reset Kit. That walks you through in depth for all your anticipated expenses in retirement. There's also a corresponding spreadsheet, which is just plug your numbers in and it calculates everything for you. It helps identify if there is a gap and helps you oversee and look to see where things can be tightened up. And you might be surprised with all of your supplements, you might have some redundancies. For instance, our multivitamins have plenty of a lot of things that we may have seen a TikTok on and we're taking something extra now. Just opportunities to put down some of the expenses and to identify where maybe you don't need to be taking that, because our bodies don't need that much vitamin C or that much magnesium. Another conversation to have with your doctor, but this one is about the cost of your prescriptions. When a medicine first comes out, oh, it's well marketed. These are the ones we see on TV with all of those side effects spoken like an auctioneer at the very end. But they're also the most expensive things on the market because they are protected by, is it copyright laws? I don't know exactly what, but they are protected. So they cannot be duplicated or mimicked, and there are no generics at that point. And there's a limited amount of time that they patent. There we go. So they are protected with patents. So the patent expires at a certain point. And these then can be available in generics. So if your doctor is trying to put you on something that just hit the market, sit down with them and come up with that decision together. Is there a older, tried and true alternative that would do the job? Sometimes these new ones are the only chance you've got. They're your Hail Mary chance for better health. Then you'll have to figure out how to work them into your budget. But generally, for your high blood pressure, for your diabetes, for your weight loss, for your arthritis, etc., there's plenty of track record in history on medications for those. So you and your doctor need to shop what fits into your budget. And are you taking this for a short amount of time or a long time? I was recently given a prescription for a 5-day run of steroids for potential carpal tunnel. And the 5-day run, out of pocket, thank God I had insurance, was going to be astronomical. With the insurance, it was manageable, it was affordable, and I'm so grateful it was only for that short window of time, because even with the insurance, that's not something I would want to have to manage through an entire life of retirement. So be cognizant of that as well. And not all medicines are created equal. I had a doctor once upon a time who on his prescription said, do not fill with generics. And that took me aback. This is back when I'm a contractor. And of course, I would always opt for the generic, but he was very stalwart about this. Okay, let's mark that off. I've used that word today, stalwart. Apparently, generics only have to have a certain percentage of the active ingredients, and that's generally why they're lower cost. So he was focused on my health improvement, focused on resolving the issues that I had, and the name brand was the one he wanted. Now, it was a short run. It was not going to be for the rest of my life. It was maybe a 2-week supply. So I bellied up. I said, all right, I'll throw my money down. Let's do this because you insist. Gratefully, not all my doctors have always insisted on the name brand. Generics have been a viable option. But these are questions you have to ask. So don't let it just lay there. When a new prescription or a additional prescription is provided by one of your medical team, make sure that you're not on something that causes redundancy, meaning you're already taking something similar. All of your medical records these days are in the portal, so it's real easy for everybody to have visibility on everything you're taking. But you also want to ensure that you're keeping that up to date. But if this new medicine is a first generation, patent approved, top of the line, let's revisit that and see what else can possibly take its place. Now, let's not shortchange our chance at a better, healthier, longer golden year season. This next chapter, we want to have as many good, healthy years as possible, but we have to be able to shop the market and have the conversations with our doctors. So this is not me telling you, don't take a prescription, blah, blah. No, I am not a medical expert. I'm just telling you what I do. When I have prescriptions, and I'm on a couple, I'm a woman of a certain age, they've got me on a few things, but with that said, I always ensure that they're common, not necessarily top of the line expensive. It's something that I could afford a generic version on, and that generic is okay for me to take. So all in, if I did not have any insurance whatsoever, I could walk into any big box store or large chain pharmacies, grocery store pharmacies, it doesn't matter, and get a generic of this, this, and this, and it would continue on the health track that I'm on. So you have to be smart about how you're spending your money, but how you're protecting your health as well. So make sure you are aware that you and your doctor or doctors, you're your best advocate for that medical team. They are there to help you and to cure you, and they're more concerned about that than about your budget. Sometimes they're not necessarily thinking along the same lines that you and I are, that if you're prescribing me a prescription that's going to make me want to sell a kidney to afford it, that's just not viable for you. Sometimes they're just wanting to cure you and to make you healthy. So ask them to pause, to revisit, and to have these conversations with them. So go down and get the Master Your Money Plan budgeting workbook. That's just your basic, simple. You don't need any fancy apps or anything of that nature. You just need a piece of paper and a pencil. You're just going to start making a list and writing amounts down there and figuring out what your monthly costs are, and then multiply it by 12. We're going to look at some annual things, etc. But to make it easier on you, the Retirement Reality Reset Kit and its corresponding spreadsheet are down there as well. For those of us who are ready to think seriously about retirement, and by retirement, I mean leaving the job you're in now and moving into this next phase of your life. And it could be a hybrid retirement where you're going to keep working, but not necessarily in an office or for anybody but yourself. But you've got to work out your numbers. You have to know what your number is because it's unique to you and it ain't $1 million, but you got to know how much you need every month. So go grab those down there below. Keep coming back. Share this video with people in your life because we all know somebody who is in the Gen X category. For me, all my contemporaries were all Gen Xers. You all need to be listening to this information because you have to start planning for your retirement now. This is series 5 of a 7-month-long conversation about retirement preparation and myths and awareness. This is, I don't even know what day of the week it is, but this is the 7-week series. On Saturday, come back. We're going to do a live to where we can engage with each other. I can answer some questions. Again, I'm not a medical expert. This is just something I am personally looking at and going through, and I want to make sure you've got this information as well. Because the more informed you are, the better actions you can take, and you are on your way to a fantastic retirement. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Stop recording. This video is where I stopped guessing and it's like, oh, big light bulb. Let me go find out what some of these costs are actually going to be for me and my husband. I was surprised of the options and the cost. It is not as unaffordable as we all thought. Let's go check this one out. When it comes to healthcare costs, there's one thing that we can control, that we can question, that we can ask for a better price on. It's not necessarily haggling, it's asking the right questions. And it could save you thousands. Asking the right questions has saved me thousands over my adult life. And nobody ever told me I could do this. It was out of necessity. Prescriptions are not all created equal. Our entire life they haven't been, but in retirement, it is a savvy person who knows this information and do the right thing for themselves and their pocketbook and ask the right questions. I sat back and I watched my father and his wife just smile and nod and take instruction from the medical establishment. Never once questioning, never once asking for more information about any of the diagnoses, procedures, and especially about the prescriptions. They just took what they were given, they took it to their pharmacy, and they just said, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. This is what my doctor wants. My doctor knows best. And I agree. Doctors are phenomenally intelligent, well-educated, and generally know best. But not all doctors have broken out of the mold of big pharma and other influences that lead them to prescribe the latest and greatest, things that I call boutique medicines. So back in my early 40s, when I began to get my life and my health in order so that I could live the best years yet, and that meant laying down a lot of bad habits and addressing things I had put off for years. But I was a contractor at the time, and I was always employed at the pleasure of whatever project manager I was working for. And in my industry, that's feast or famine. So to prepare for the famines, because it's going to come, I always made sure when my doctors put me on a prescription that it was something I could afford if I had no health insurance at all, which generally meant, is there an alternative brand? Is there a generic? Is there a generic, or genetic, that's, scratch that. Is there a generic medicine for this? Do I need to take this plus this? And sometimes there's even combinations of meds that are much lower cost that can get the same effect. So learn to ask the questions. It is your responsibility to take care of you. The doctors are also taking care of you, but they're not as concerned about your pocketbook and your retirement funds and the duration of your money as you are. So you've got to be a good steward of that and proactive. Don't just sit back and roll over and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, whatever you say, that's what I'm going to take. Because I don't know if you've ever been given a prescription and taken it to the pharmacy to find out what it's going to cost you, but it can be jaw-dropping. When we think about retirement, we are always thinking about how much money have I saved? How much money does it take for me to live if I'm going to live to, my case, 93. That's my goal. That's the target. If my money makes it to 93, then I've done a great job. I do plan to go out net zero, so if the markets are kind to me, about the time I hit 90, I'm going on some spending splurges, giving the money away like I'm a millionaire trying to go broke. But when it comes to everything that's in retirement, you've got to plan for the littles and the bigs. Now, down in the description, there is a free for you workbook, Master Your Money Plan, and there's also another workbook for life experiences to income for those of us who aren't going to fully retire, but we want to hybrid retire. But in the workbooks, you are looking at all your expenses, not just your power and your mortgage and your transportation cost and your food, everything that goes into how you live right now and what you're going to need for retirement. And prescriptions cost and supplement cost, and this is your multivitamins, etc., all of that needs to be accounted for in your plan, because when you get to retirement, you can't afford to be surprised that, oh my goodness, I pay $50 a month for this prescription, and by goodness, I can afford that. But if you had 5 of those that all cost $50 a piece, that's a chunk of change when you didn't plan for it. So we have to ask the better questions. We have to encourage alternative medicines and or combinations. Can it go to a compound pharmacy? There's a question to ask. So your health care cost in retirement, whether you're retiring early or at age 65, 67, all have to be taken into account. Down in the description as well, I have the Retirement Reality Reset Kit. That walks you through in depth for all your anticipated expenses in retirement. There's also a corresponding spreadsheet, which is just plug your numbers in and it calculates everything for you. It helps identify if there is a gap and helps you oversee and look to see where things can be tightened up. And you might be surprised with all of your supplements, you might have some redundancies. For instance, our multivitamins have plenty of a lot of things that we may have seen a TikTok on and we're taking something extra now. Just opportunities to put down some of the expenses and to identify where maybe you don't need to be taking that, because our bodies don't need that much vitamin C or that much magnesium. Another conversation to have with your doctor, but this one is about the cost of your prescriptions. When a medicine first comes out, oh, it's well marketed. These are the ones we see on TV with all of those side effects spoken like an auctioneer at the very end. But they're also the most expensive things on the market because they are protected by, is it copyright laws? I don't know exactly what, but they are protected. So they cannot be duplicated or mimicked, and there are no generics at that point. And there's a limited amount of time that they patent. There we go. So they are protected with patents. So the patent expires at a certain point, and these then can be available in generics. So if your doctor is trying to put you on something that just hit the market, sit down with them and come up with that decision together. Is there a older, tried and true alternative that would do the job? Sometimes these new ones are the only chance you've got. They're your Hail Mary chance for better health. Then you'll have to figure out how to work them into your budget. But generally, for your high blood pressure, for your diabetes, for your weight loss, for your arthritis, etc., there's plenty of track record in history on medications for those. So you and your doctor need to shop what fits into your budget. And are you taking this for a short amount of time or a long time? And not all medicines are created equal. I had a doctor once upon a time who on his prescription said, do not fill with generics. And that took me aback This is back when I'm a contractor, and of course, I would always opt for the generic, but he was very stalwart about this. Okay, let's mark that off. I've used that word today, stalwart. Apparently, generics only have to have a certain percentage of the active ingredients, and that's generally why they're lower cost. So he was focused on my health improvement, focused on resolving the issues that I had, and the name brand was the one he wanted. Now, it was a short run. It was not going to be for the rest of my life. It was maybe a 2-week supply. So I bellied up. I said, all right, I'll throw my money down. Let's do this because you insist. Gratefully, not all my doctors have always insisted on the name brand. Generics have been a viable option. But these are questions you have to ask. So don't let it just lay there. When a new prescription or a additional prescription is provided by one of your medical team, make sure that you're not on something that causes redundancy, meaning you're already taking something similar. All of your medical records these days are in the portal, so it's real easy for everybody to have visibility on everything you're taking. But you also want to ensure that you're keeping that up to date. But if this new medicine is a first generation, patent approved, top of the line, let's revisit that and see what else can possibly take its place. Now, let's not shortchange our chance at a better, healthier, longer golden year season. This next chapter, we want to have as many good, healthy years as possible, but we have to be able to shop the market and have the conversations with our doctors. So this is not me telling you, don't take a prescription, blah, blah. No, I am not a medical expert. I'm just telling you what I do. When I have prescriptions, they're common, not necessarily top of the line expensive. It's something that I could afford a generic version on, and that generic is okay for me to take. So all in, if I did not have any insurance whatsoever, I could walk into any big box store or large chain pharmacies, grocery store pharmacies, it doesn't matter, and get a generic of this, this, and this, and it would continue on the health track that I'm on. So you have to be smart about how you're spending your money, but how you're protecting your health as well. And we've all seen it. Doctors, God bless them, they're into office production schedules of the number of patients they see. Sometimes this is driven by the big hospital organizations they're a part of. Other times it's just a good office manager making sure that they are doing the volume needed to support their financial business goals. But they will take the time to sit and answer your questions. So don't ever feel that you're never asking a dumb question, but don't ever think that they're not willing to answer your questions. Sometimes if they're running behind and they've got to get to the next patient, then of course I'm going to extend them the courtesy, hey, I'll put you a note in the portal. And that question will get before that doctor and the answer will come back to me. Still ask the question, but I didn't hold them up. So with today's technology, use your phone, type in your questions as you're thinking of them. Sometimes I'll go sit in the parking lot and I'll type my questions into the portal via the phone. I know it's done, and usually by the time I get to the office, I've got the answer to my question. So make sure you are aware that you and your doctor or doctors, you're your best advocate for that medical team. They are there to help you and to cure you, and they're more concerned about that than about your budget. Sometimes they're not necessarily thinking along the same lines that you and I are, that if you're prescribing me a prescription that's going to make me want to sell a kidney to afford it, that's just not viable for you. Sometimes they're just wanting to cure you and to make you healthy. So ask them to pause, to revisit, and to have these conversations with them. So go down and get the Master Your Money Plan budgeting workbook. That's just your basic, simple. You don't need any fancy apps or anything of that nature. You just need a piece of paper and a pencil. You're just going to start making a list and writing amounts down there and figuring out what your monthly costs are. and then multiply it by 12. We're going to look at some annual things, etc. But to make it easier on you, the Retirement Reality Reset Kit and its corresponding spreadsheet are down there as well. For those of us who are ready to think seriously about retirement, and by retirement, I mean leaving the job you're in now and moving into this next phase of your life. And it could be a hybrid retirement where you're going to keep working, but not necessarily in an office or for anybody but yourself. But you've got to work out your numbers. You have to know what your number is because it's unique to you and it ain't $1 million, but you got to know how much you need every month. So go grab those down there below. Keep coming back. Share this video with people in your life because we all know somebody who is in the Gen X category. For me, all my contemporaries were all Gen Xers. You all need to be listening to this information because you have to start planning for your retirement now. This is series 5 of a 7-month-long conversation about retirement preparation and myths and awareness. This is, I don't even know what day of the week it is, but this is the 7-week series. On Saturday, come back. We're going to do a live to where we can engage with each other. I can answer some questions. Again, I'm not a medical expert. This is just something I am personally looking at and going through, and I want to make sure you've got this information as well. Because the more informed you are, the better actions you can take, and you are on your way to a fantastic retirement. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Stop recording. What if one simple question could save you thousands? When it comes to healthcare cost, I've already mentioned that healthcare cost is broader than what you pay for your health insurance. It includes all of your prescriptions, all the things that you have personally imposed upon you with those crazy amounts of supplements that we all seem to take, whether it's a multivitamin, fish oils, or it has increased exponentially and follows the trends on social media from the next thing that comes out that's going to cure that ail that you're afraid to face with your doctor. Let's go and unpack this because, again, it's more than just your health insurance premium. You've got copays, you've got deductibles, just like with, come on, let's watch the video. What are you really paying when it comes to healthcare? And I am not talking your insurance premiums, deductibles, and copays. I'm talking about everything else. You got any clue what I'm talking about? Get a cup of coffee. We got some talking to do. I used to think healthcare cost was what you paid for your insurance every month, your deductibles, copays. That's what I assumed healthcare cost was. But it's broader than that. And as we have looked at our budgets and we have identified where we're spending money, what could possibly be economized, etc., one of the things that have bubbled to the surface, and you're aware of this, is everything you're spending can all add up. And this is where we have to be mindful of what we're selecting, if there's redundancy, and are you paying for a brand name? Did we not all get force-fed that marketing routine back in the 80s with Vidal Sassoon? If you don't look good, I don't look good. That was a great little advertising campaign. Oh, and then there was that wonderful actress who, oh, she hit it big with her "Nothing Comes Between Me and My Calvin Kleins." There we go. I have dated myself, but I know a lot of you out there remember these campaigns as well. But let's talk about the actual healthcare cost and what brand names and other decisions that you make can significantly impact how much you're going to have to budget and you're going to have to spend. But before we move into this next chapter of life and we're figuring out how much money we need every month, this deserves a look. I didn't realize how much the small healthcare choices were going to impact my budget. I used to think that a brand name, that's just what you called something, whether it was Kleenex, Coke, or Clorox. It all was a product that served a purpose, but the brand names we pay more for. How many of us have moved from the names that I just put out there to some of the store brand equivalents just because of the price point? Healthcare costs include products that we go and we purchase on a regular basis, and we have to make the same wise decisions about how we're spending our money. the method to this madness is you have to start looking at what you're currently spending. What does it take for you to live right now? And what do you need in retirement on a monthly basis? You don't need $1 million in your retirement accounts, but you do need to know what your number is. So if you're not currently budgeting, down below, Master Your Money Plan free budgeting workbook. Go and grab it. I've also built an extended, very thorough retirement reality reset kit that is also down below with a corresponding spreadsheet. So you can just plug in the numbers from the workbook and let it do the math for you. But we have to figure out now what these little pieces are costing us. Death by 1,000 cuts. You don't want your retirement to be a victim of that. In the previous video where we talked about prescription drugs, there is value, and I say it's a requirement for you to have those conversations with your doctors. When they give you a prescription, you need to question, is there a generic equivalent? Is there a lower cost equivalent? Is there a combination of two generics that could be combined to equal this one brand new boutique, no generic available prescription that they're giving you? Same thing when it comes to the health care that you do over the counter. You need to look, and again, AI is great for that comparison, but we just do it the old-fashioned way. Put the bottles up next to each other and say, do I need all this? Does this have this already? Is there a generic to go with this name brand? Oh my goodness, back in the day, Geritol. Who amongst us remembers that? Leave it in the comments. We were too young at the time to take it, but I can remember the commercials and our grandparents having it, etc. Well, they've updated some of that branding, but it's basically the same push as we age. We are looking for not so much the fountain of youth, but ways to make us healthier and better longer into our golden years. If we all had a time machine, we'd go back to our teens and 20s and make better choices. But we're here today, and we're going to do what we can do to live our best life moving forward. And some of that is over-the-counter supplements and other healthcare products, but you have got to be wise with your money. So make sure you do the comparison. Make sure you do the analyses in some form or fashion. Do you have redundancy? Can you stop buying that? Even if you're not ready to make the leap. These are all pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters, but all of this money stacks up, and you can pay off debt now with the extra. You can put it into your savings cash peace fund. You can put it into your investment funds, however you want to manage it, but it's mining for found money in your current existence and preparing you to make sure that when you get to retirement, you don't have these extra bleeding costs, and you're in a much better position. Some of these things that we self-prescribe or could possibly have been prescribed, there are some really high-grade fish oils that a doctor can prescribe. There's a higher grade prescription B vitamin complexes to help with nerve support, etc., etc. Some of these prescriptions don't have a generic equivalent. But is there an over-the-counter quantity that a doctor would approve you or recommend or be comfortable with you taking instead? More questions that you should ask your doctor. Have that working relationship with them. Yes, they do have a production schedule in their offices, but if they're unable in person to take the extra time to spend as you open your giant Christmas list of all your supplements that you want to go over, I am certain that you can reach them through their portals or package the questions into smaller packets. And then that way you don't have to have a 2-hour conversation. You can do 15-minute conversation here or one porthole question here, but you've got to ask those questions. And don't think you need to understand every option that's out there. You just simply need to understand it is your right, your prerogative, and your due diligence to ask the questions to your doctors. A lot of doctors these days want to know what all supplements you've self-prescribed. That's another wonderful conversation with them. You may be taking some stuff that's counteracting with the current prescription meds that you're on. So make sure your doctor is aware of anything you self-prescribed, and they can actually coach you on what you should or should not take. Or, hey, you're already on this prescription med, that's doing everything you need. Don't worry about that. So you don't want to be taking too much of a good thing, because it's not always a good thing. I am not telling you to go and do all of this immediately, but I want to make you aware. This is some housekeeping that needs to be done. A, for your health, making sure you're not taking too much of something that's counteracting with your prescription medicines. But this series is about controlling your healthcare costs with awareness and intention. I am not a healthcare expert. This is what I'm doing for myself, motivated by the budget, but then also motivated by my long-term health concerns and diligence on keeping me as healthy as long as I can. So if you or anybody you know are concerned about healthcare costs, this was an eye-opening point for me, because again, I always thought healthcare costs were the big bucket things, in monthly premiums, regardless if it's now, before 65, or at 65 with Medicare. So it was the monthly premiums, it was deductibles, and it was copays, and then of course prescription costs. All of the other essentials that we think are essentials, the things that we do for us, I never consider that part of healthcare. But if it is FSA or HSA reimbursable, somebody somewhere thinks it's healthcare. So your multivitamin or a collagen supplement, protein, etc., evaluate this. Double check with your doctor. Is it something that is doing me good? Is it doing me bad? Or is it benign? And some of the benign stuff, you might want to reevaluate as well. Why do any of that and purchase it out of your budget if it's really not working for you? Snake oil used to be sold out of the back of a wagon on the prairies, or at least that's what they called it. But it basically was youth in a bottle, promises in a bottle. And it is happening today in our society. It's never stopped. We do have regulatory bodies in place that will prevent dangerous things, or at least pursue dangerous things that are being marketed. But all of the benign stuff, sometimes you might as well go out and eat dirt. Okay, so I'm Jenny. This is a 7-day series talking about healthcare costs, all of healthcare costs, as we go into this next phase of life where we're looking to retire early or at 65, the Medicare and the different parts. We're not into that. I may not dive into that. I'm not quite there yet. I'll walk through that with a couple of my in-laws and my parents, and that is a mind bender. Other videos are addressing how you get some questions answered, etc. So be certain to binge all of this series. But come on back. On a regular, I post on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I got a lot to say. Well, actually, I've got a little to say about a lot of stuff, but I got a lot to say about prepping yourselves into, or preparing, not prepping, we're preparing ourselves for this next chapter of life. Whether you want to retire tomorrow or you're going to wait to 65 or 67, it's your choice, and you don't have to lay it all down at one time. Stop recording. So healthcare cost. Prior to hitting this stage of life where I am considering retiring before age 65, and I know that healthcare is 100% going to come out of my pocketbook, I used to think it was all about the premiums, the copays, and the deductibles. To me, that was the full picture of the equation. Everything else, those are just things I would buy myself anyway. Whether it's the multivitamin, or as a woman of a certain age with a little bit of brain fog, there's all sorts of supplements out there that apparently are there to help support us in our unique situations. But at the end of the day, I sat down and I took an inventory of everything I was taking as self-prescribed supplements or self-prescribed topicals to help fight the aging, etc., etc. And yes, I will admit, I have become quite, I don't want to say enamored. I see the value of these AI engines that can do some analyzation for you without having to think too hard about it. So I brought all my supplements in. I took pictures of all the ingredients, etc. And I asked an AI engine, ChatGPT, not sponsored, but love this particular engine. But I asked ChatGPT to do a comparison. Where did I have redundancy? Because I was getting tired of taking fistfuls of pills mornings and nights. It was ridiculous. So ChatGPT actually analyzed all the ingredients, told me where there was redundancy, and I was incredibly surprised. But then also, without marketing overtures, made recommendation of not brand names, not marketed names, but supplements, period. So if you're taking, I don't know, magnesium or vitamin B or vitamin C, that's the level to which it made recommendations and told you what was the suggested dosage, period. So I actually was able to eliminate quite a bit, and I'm going to be true transparency here. If I, and when I, because I did, all the current supplements I'm taking, I broke it down because I'm a geek like this. I took the whole bottle, how many doses, how much, what was the cost per dose, how many am I taking every day, etc. So I came up with a daily total healthcare cost of just the supplements I was taking. And then I multiplied it by a month. And then I multiplied it by a year. And I was spending, and this is not sustainable for the rest of my life, trust me, over $200 a month in just supplements. I challenge you, go take a look at that yourself. Because healthcare costs is not just your insurance bill. It's not just your copay. It's not just your deductible. It's all of these little things, and they add up. So regardless if you're ready to make this leap or you're doing a 2 to 5 year ramp up, this is part of that's what they used to call us 4 girls. Anyway, yeah, we won't get into that. Well, okay, my older sister's named Penny. I'm Jenny. And then there's a set of twins. And so it was just the way people refer to it as penny, nickel, dime, quarter. And of course, the youngest one and the most petite baby of us all became quarter. So that was a good bragging point for her. All right, this will be in the bloopers at the end. I'll cut this out of the main video. Eliminate quite a bit. And I'm going to be true transparency here. If I, and when I, because I did, all the current supplements I'm taking, I broke it down because I'm a geek like this. I took the whole bottle, how many doses, how much, what was the cost per dose, how many am I taking every day, etc. So I came up with a daily total healthcare cost of just the supplements I was taking. And then I multiplied it by a month. And then I multiplied it by a year. And I was spending, and this is not sustainable for the rest of my life, trust me, over $200 a month in just supplements. I challenge you, go take a look at that yourself. Because healthcare costs is not just your insurance bill. It's not just your copay. It's not just your deductible. It's all of these little things, and they add up. So regardless if you're ready to make this leap or you're doing a 2 to 5 year ramp up, this is part of that's what they used to call us 4 girls. Anyway, yeah, we won't get into that. Well, okay, my older sister's named Penny. I'm Jenny. And then there's a set of twins. And so it was just the way people refer to it as penny, nickel, dime, quarter. And of course, the youngest one and the most petite baby of us all became quarter. So that was a good bragging point for her. All right, this will be in the bloopers at the end. I'll cut this out of the main video. We were taught, I know I was taught, you just sit with someone in a position of authority, whether it's your principal or your boss or your doctor, and you just smile and nod because they have the authority. They've gone through all the education. But I got to tell you, they're not always worried about your budget as much as they are about curing you. And they can be as concerned about both if you encourage it. So in this video is where we start unpacking the different price points of what's going to keep you healthy and keep you living the best life possible. So in this video, we're going to boss up, we're going to sit down, we're going to have some hard conversations with ourselves and then with our doctors to find out if there's some more affordable options for our prescriptions and our supplements. We're going to do a deep, let's watch this together. Healthcare and healthcare costs are not the boogeyman. They're not hiding under your bed to jump out and scare you. We're scaring ourselves. I used to be, shall I say, intimidated, scared, fearful. Okay, you insert your adjective here. I used to think healthcare and healthcare cost was going to be the big, uncontrollable, derail all of my plans for retirement monster looming on the horizon. But it's not. These are just a line item in a budget. And once they become that, you educate yourself to find out what you need, how much of it you need. And we're talking everything from insurance to copays to deductibles to prescriptions, and then all these personally assumed essentials like supplements and vitamins and things like that. But once you break it down, it's just numbers. And numbers you can control and you can make decisions about. So healthcare cost is not the boogeyman. It's not coming to eat you in the middle of the night, but we can sometimes feel that it is. So it's not a wild card. It's something we can control. And once you see it in that light, it's going to change your life. Big weight is coming off your shoulders, and you're going to feel empowered to make different decisions. A lot of us, women especially, but a lot of us Gen Xers are working longer because we have not taken the time to figure out what it's actually going to cost us. If you're not currently doing a budget, and I mean a written roadmap of what your money is every month at this stage in life, you cannot predict what you're going to need in retirement. So down in the description, Master Your Money Plan. It's a free workbook for you to get down there and start doing a budget. For those of us who are actually considering retiring, regardless of if we want to do it before 65, sooner than later, or if we plan to just keep working until we drop because we love what we do, Retirement Reality Reset Kit is also down there for you. This is going to walk you through all of the expenses you have today, what expenses you may have in retirement, and then we'll start looking at ways to cut some of the forgotten subscriptions and things. Go down and check that out. It's on the website. The link's down below. That is a Retirement Reality Reset Kit. And for those of us who hate math, and I do, in my head, I hate it. Love it on a spreadsheet, love it on a calculator. I have created a spreadsheet that corresponds with the workbook for you to be able to just plug the numbers in once you figure them out. And you don't have to figure them out because the spreadsheet, you just plug some numbers in and it's going to figure things out for you. And then you can look at it and say, okay, this is where I can, okay. If you want to retire sooner than later, or you just want the confidence to pick a date and that's your exit date, you need this Retirement Reality Reset Kit. It's up here. So how is healthcare costs just line items on a budget? Well, for me, first and foremost, how much is my insurance policy going to be a year? And I have another video and a worksheet down there for you to figure out what your options are when it comes to health insurance. If you're 65 or plus, you've got Medicare. Prior to 65, you've got 4 or 5 other options. And that's discussed in detail in other videos. So go binge those or grab the handout below. But you figure out what your cost is going to be this year. And that's line item number 1. My monthly insurance premium is this. And then you're going to look at what your out-of-pocket costs are. And out-of-pocket every month is going to be your deductible, and it's going to be your doctor visit copays. For the deductible, and this is where Nerdy Jen makes her appearance on my spreadsheet every freaking month. I have a line item divided by 12. So if my annual deductible, let's say, is $3,000, I'm going to divide that by 12, and that's going to be my monthly cost. So that every month I know I'm putting away this chunk of money, setting it aside for a deductible I will ultimately have to meet this year. Now, maybe you have a great health year and you did not erode that full deductible. Great. Then that can carry forward to the next year, to the next annual policy, and whatever the deductible is then, you've already got part of it met. All insurances are priced. We know this from our autos and our homes and all these other insurances we've purchased in our entire life. The higher deductible, the lower your monthly cost. So over time, we can all, God forbid, we don't have any major medical situations, but for every month, you don't need that full amount you've set aside for your deductible, and it builds and it builds. You might be able to do different shopping for your health premiums on an annual basis because you've already started to amass a chunk. And by a chunk, it could be $1,000 over time, etc. But you might be able to raise your deductibles to decrease your premiums because you've already pre-funded a deductible. That's a comfortable feeling. Another line item that we have to put into our budget is, what is our copays going to be? So that is dependent on whatever policy you have selected, whatever your deductible is, but usually there's going to be some sort of doctor visit copay. There is in the worksheet below. It'll help walk you through how frequently do you go to the doctor. For me, I go twice a year. I have a 6-month checkup, 6-month checkup. So let's do the math. That's twice a year. So nothing else happens, and I don't need to reach out to one of the specialists that I've developed a relationship with. My regular doctor visits are simply twice a year for a checkup, blood work, prescription refill. And my insurance policy, whichever that may be at the time, will tell me what that is going to cost me, minus my deductible, etc. So I will also budget with an estimate only, because we don't have a crystal ball, what I anticipate my copays to be. So that also becomes a monthly line item. If I thought my copays were going to be $200 a year, again, divide that by 12 months, becomes very manageable in a budgetary standpoint. So this is how healthcare costs are no longer scary, because we're putting a flashlight on them and we know exactly what they're going to cost us. With everything in life, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And truth be told, we're all going to have health events. And this is why we get insurance, to help take the sting out of those health events. But if a major, or even an unexpected health event happens outside of what we budgeted for, something I do that helps me sleep at night is I have a little medical emergency fund. It's baked into my 3 to 6 month emergency fund that I carry in cash at all times, but that's where those unexpected things come from. So you don't necessarily have to add into your budget every month a cushion for those unexpected events, but having a regular emergency fund will take the pressure off of that. If you do not currently have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund just for regular life pre-retirement, you definitely need to consider that into your equation as you're preparing for retirement. You have to know, first and foremost, how much you need every month, period, end of story, before you can multiply that by 3 or 6 months. You need to do that now for your regular working life. And then as you move into retirement, you can adjust that. But once you have it and it's set aside, you can't buy a sleeping pill to make you sleep any better than knowing that. But the peace of mind that gives you is priceless. This doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know down to the absolute penny and never have any flexibility, because your premiums are going to change year to year. Your copay is probably going to change. Your deductibles are going to change. Inflation is going to impact all of this. So you don't have to know it down to a science. You just have to know it in broad strokes and prepare for it, because it's going to be a regular expense. And if you don't go ahead and embrace that now and understand that, it's going to be a surprise. And shame on you if it is a surprise, because I'm sitting here telling you this and you've gotten to this point in the video. All right. So again, healthcare costs, not just the big buckets. It's all of the little things that we need to start considering now. And there's ways to tighten the belt. There's ways to get the extras out of there. You just have to make the decision. Pick one and start there. Don't have to do all of this in one lump sum, one giant weekend. We got lives to lead. But pick something. Check out all of the supplements that you're personally taking. Where can you start analyzing, removing the redundancy, or maybe even going, okay, I thought this was good for me, but the studies show, etc. If you want to know more about the AI prompt you can use or exactly how you can do that, leave me a note down below. Share this video with somebody in your life who's starting to think about they're ready to retire, or 65's coming sooner than later and they want to go ahead and start thinking about and getting prepared now, or if they're scared because they haven't even started. A lot of my channel addresses that. If you haven't started, there is no shame. We've all been living lives, raising kids, paying for expenses, but retirement is happening and we've got to start thinking about it now. All right, so I'm Jenny. I post on Saturdays and Wednesdays. This is a 7-day series talking all about healthcare. Binge the series. Go and check out my other content. Share the channel with people in your life who need this information. I'll see y'all again soon. Stop recording. Video 6 hit close to home for me because I held my father's hand as he retired early without health insurance by choice because he thought it was too expensive because of his pre-existing conditions. And this was, in all honesty, pre-open market exchange, Obamacare, etc. And I watched him move into his 60s until 65, going to the doctor only when it was critical, only when he needed to absolutely have a prescription refilled. And then he was at the grace and mercy of the doctor to work within his price points for the generics, for the free samples, etc., etc. And he had a wonderful doctor locally that did help with that. But with that said, if something was to occur, what are the steps in preparation that we need to take now to make sure we can face? Things are going to happen, and you're going to need to know how you are prepared, where the paperwork is, what your policy reads, etc., especially if you are going to pick up your own health insurance, leaving your employer because you want to retire early before age 65. What do we learn from real life that spreadsheets are never going to show us? I have learned more about healthcare in this stage of life that I'm beginning to consider and ultimately will enter than any spreadsheet or any article or any YouTube video is ever going to teach me. A lot of it is real, some of it is myth, and some of it was fear-based on my perception of what my loved one was going through. We've all watched our parents age, our grandparents age, the different health situations that come up, the fallout from that, regardless if it's health-related fallout, their stress, their fear, their lack of understanding of what's happening in their life. And by lack of understanding, I don't mean because they're mentally diminished. I mean because they did not fully understand what the process was, that they needed to get some sort of pre-approval before they showed up at this doctor's appointment for X, Y, and Z. They were not their own advocate. They sat back. I don't know when that generation was taught that you just deferred to the medical authority and just nodded and smiled. That is where I say no. I will be fully informed. I will act and not react. I will be prepared to face whatever comes health-wise or medical establishment process, bureaucracy-wise, not just for myself, but for my husband and anyone else in my life that I love and care about, that I need to be the advocate, their own personal social worker. Because, you know, when you get to the hospital these days, they introduce you to your social worker. And a lot of us, me especially, was like, what? Social worker? But it's basically your liaison, your cruise director for the health establishment for your particular situation that you're there. But with that said, it is up to you to educate you. And there's things we need to continue talking about. I'm a planner. I'm a list maker. I'm a spreadsheet user. Y'all know this about me. If you've watched one, even half of one of my videos, You know that Jenny, she's got a list and she's ticking things off, and I do. But we can't plan for everything. All we can do is educate ourselves, ask the right questions, be prepared as much as possible. But life is going to happen. Those curveballs, they're coming. They are coming, and they're coming for you. It is going to rain. We have rainy day emergency funds because of that. We also need to know that when it comes to our health, that we need to be proactive and not reactive. So let's talk about that for a minute. We're all aging. It's just a natural course of being human. We've all made stupid or less than perfect decisions, and I'm pointing to my past me, that we will pay the piper for because, yeah, those 60 bazillion brain cells they said we were going to kill if we kept drinking that beer. Well, we kind of need those now. They're gone. When we were young and immortal, it didn't matter. It matters now. But you have to be prepared regardless of what events happen. It can just be run-of-the-mill, every 6-month checkups with your doctor, annual checkups. We ladies, we've got annual things that we have to do. And good news is, the more we age, the further down the road we get. Some of those things are no longer annual. They're like every 3 years or 5 years. Depends on your personal situation and you and your doctor. But you have to be able to, you just have to accept things are going to happen, and you're going to need to know how you are prepared, where the paperwork is, what your policy reads, etc., especially if you are going to pick up your own health insurance, leaving your employer because you want to retire early before age 65. You got to fully understand. Don't just leave it in the hand of some nameless, faceless broker on the phone because this was the best price and they say it fits what you need. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're calling 911 or you're showing up at the emergency room, you're not going to be able to get them on the phone and ask them questions. You need to know these things for yourself. We have always prepared for certain events, and this should be no different. When a hurricane is arriving in the South, on the Gulf Coast, we all know that when a hurricane's arriving, you've got your emergency preparedness kit. You make sure that thing's stocked before it happens. For those of you who had children, you had your bug out bag. When you needed to go to the hospital, there was a plan. You put it into writing. You practiced it. You discussed it with those amongst you, etc. This should be no different because these things are going to happen. And we've got so much longer ahead of us than those moments in time we did such great preparedness for. So let's start thinking now. If something was to occur, what are the steps in preparation that we need to take now to make sure we can face it? And the very first one is know your policy. Know what your options are when there is a medical emergency. Not all emergency rooms or emergency med clinics are created equally when it comes to your policy. You need to know ahead of time where your go-to facility is so that you're taken there and not somewhere else. In my mother's case, my mother and her husband, when they relocated from Alabama to Texas for those last 7 or 8 years, they did not fully educate themselves. They did not change their insurance policies from Alabama to Texas. So when they first relocated here, they're still under an Alabama policy. So now anything that happened in Texas is considered out of state. And they had no clue. It wasn't until there was an event and the co-pays and everything were just so astronomical and surprising to them that they finally realized, I think somebody at the hospital may have told them that, no, you're still under the Alabama policy and this is the prices for your out of state or your travel or whatever that rider was. Because you need to look in that too. Because when you buy your insurance policy, it might be state specific and anything outside of the state could be a different price tier, etc. So for those of us who travel, that's a point to consider as well. If you're thinking of relocating, that needs to be part of your changing of the utilities and cable and internet and all of that. Look at your health insurance. Don't just make assumptions that it's going to follow you organically, because it will be a rude, expensive awakening. Now, for those of us who are thinking about retiring early, before age 65, some of us may be going from employer-sponsored health plans into COBRA. If not COBRA, then you're shopping and you'll be prepared to pick up your health policy either off the exchange or from a private provider, etc. But you need to make sure there's not gaps of missing time that you have to wait and delay before the coverage of the new policy kicks in. That could be an issue for you. You want to make sure that everything is fully covered. When you're leaving the previous policy, go ahead and make sure that you have done your due diligence, that you have taken care of all of your upcoming doctor appointments that may need to happen sooner than later, that you've already met your deductible or you're close to meeting your deductible in your previous policy. Go ahead and take advantage of that, so that when you get transitioned over to your new private pay policy, whether it's on the exchange or you've picked up a independent policy for health coverage, then you are working with a clean slate. You know that you're up to date on all your annuals, you're up to date on all your prescriptions, etc., and everything can just transition smoothly. There are benefits to timing your departure on your insurance policies in existence, the calendar year, and when you're picking something up. It might make sense to delay your exit until an insurance period rolls over, so that, in my case, my husband and I, we've met our deductible. This is only May. So not that I'm planning to leave before the end of the year, but it would not behoove me to leave and pick up a new insurance policy before the end of the year when I've already met my deductible. I choose, or it's prudent to choose, to go ahead and write out the calendar year. If you were picking up COBRA from your existing employer, well, then your deductible, that policy is the policy that you would continue on with. So your year is still covered with the deductible. But you need to know these things before you make a leap. It's all part of keeping yourself proactively informed, so you can make decisions, you can act and not react in critical situations. When we're not prepared, fear kicks in. We make knee-jerk decisions, emotionally based decisions, instead of logically based decisions. And that can be expensive as well. You need to know specifically that same list of facts and details, but not necessarily prescriptions. You need to know what is in-state, out-of-state. What is emergency care versus urgent care? What is the co-pays? What is the deductibles? These things can shift and not be near as clear as your assumptions are. So ask a lot of stupid questions. And by stupid questions, because there are no stupid questions, but sit there like you've never heard of healthcare coverage before. That a deductible, a copay, what are these things? Have whoever is selling you this insurance walk you through it. And take notes. Take notes, because that person, once that policy is sold, may not be available when you need to ask additional questions. And the very pleasant ladies or gentlemen who are checking you into these emergency places, they're not going to know either. They can call a number on the back of your card and ask the medical lingo questions, but your peace of mind is you knowing. So take lessons from what we've witnessed from our parents and our grandparents when they had to make the midnight dash somewhere. What can you do differently now? If something was to occur, what are the steps in preparation that we need to take now? You need to have a plan in place. And that plan for this conversation is, What kind of insurance coverage do you have? Where are your insurance cards? Where's Pawpaw's medication list? Do you know where to take him? Who's going to take your insurance? Things that you need to know. You have to be prepared. When you know what your options are and where you should geographically, physically go for medical attention at 2 o'clock in the morning, if by chance you get there and there's a problem and somebody is not bleeding or dying, and they want you to pay a $600 copay for this particular emergency room visit, but that's not what you were expecting, you now know that 3 blocks down the road is the next one that you're available to go to. You can go there instead. Now, if somebody is in a critical situation, you're not going to haggle. You want them to get attention. And everything that we have witnessed our parents and our grandparents go through are lessons that we can do better with now. I know from my dad's experiences, his choices of retiring without any insurance. And so there was 6 or 7 years that he did go to doctors and things, but he was very minimalistic with the amount of prescriptions he would get filled because he didn't have the coverage to pay for them. He paid the price for those decisions as he continued to age because those medications could have prevented complications in the next 15, 20 years. So these are lessons that we all get to learn. And so for me personally, I will make sure that I keep healthcare coverage. I will make sure that I am on medications or prescribed medications that I can afford. Matter of fact, those lessons with my dad, I've been applying for the last 20 years. As a contractor, you've heard me say in other videos, I would go to a doctor, they would try to put me on the latest and the greatest just out medicine for X, Y, and Z, and it was no thank you, I can't afford that if I didn't have health insurance. Well, your copay doesn't matter. I need prescriptions, whether they're generic or not, that if I had no insurance, I could walk into my local pharmacy and get them filled and be able to afford them at a cash price. Be your own best advocate. Learn your lessons. Do what's best for you and your family, but you have got to know these things before an emergency happens. All right, I'm Jenny. I post on, when do I post? I post on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I've got a little to say about a lot of stuff. I do. And all of it this week has had to do with healthcare as we move into this next stage of life. Share this video with somebody in your life that needs to hear this information. Somebody who is thinking about retiring before age 65. All of this is applicable after age 65. It's just a different kettle of fish when it comes to Medicare versus the markets that we have to shop for insurance now. Also, these lessons, apply them to your existing life. If you're in your 40s and you've got employer-sponsored health care, great. You still need all of this information for those policies. And for those situations, you need to be prepared before the bottom falls out in your next emergency. All right, so pass this video along, like, share, comment, keep coming back. I'll see y'all soon. Stop recording. A lot of the choices that you made will come home to roost now. I personally am experiencing that. I am not going into that without kicking and screaming. I started 13, 15 years ago making better choices to stop what I was doing, but then also put myself on the path to better health. And I am grateful every doctor's appointment that I go to that I stopped what I was doing back in the day. And for me, it was 2-pack a day smoking. You've got your own demons and devils, whatever you didn't stop or you did stop or you need to stop now. You can impact your future health by the choices you make now. But this is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the cost involved in managing those poor decisions. So there are things that you can do now to proactively improve your situation that cost you nothing. All right. If you are, no, let's not even get into that. I am not here to coach you through your physical transformation or your daily habits on what you can do, but there's lots that you can be doing, and there's simple, easy things to do. I'm certain I have a video in me about that, because it's pretty amazing the impact they have on you. Fresh batteries, water, exit plan, etc., backup power supplies, etc., whatever you need. When they say that you're going to be hit, that's when you start looking at your non-perishable food products, which you may need to churn and restock and get a loaf of bread and some peanut butter, etc. But you prepare. They didn't change their insurance oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. In that the coverage that you're picking up seamlessly allows you to move into it without any gaps between one insurance to the other. Sometimes there is a period of time that they want to ensure that, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Okay. So, because when we're not prepared, we're afraid. It is fearful. You may not even make the best health decisions when you're not prepared, when you don't know what somebody wants or what their allergies are, the full prescription list. So just like when there's a hurricane or you're heading to the hospital for a baby, etc., you've got your list written down in an app somewhere where when they check you in, you know that these are your prescriptions, these are your supplements, or your spouse's or your child, etc. Healthcare coverage, no different, because Pawpaw may have been having some heart palpitations, or his arm went numb and he was having difficulty breathing, whatever. If you could go back in time and I did have a Pawpaw. Yeah, bless his heart. I never had a Meemaw though, but let's use Pawpaw and Meemaw as the examples here to make sure we can face on the morning on May 12th in whatever year, 1945, there's going to be a problem. And when you know what your options are for coverage, and not so much for coverage, but if somebody has cut their finger at the barbecue and you need to get your husband stitched up because he was doing the flippy things with the spatulas and the burgers, and all of a sudden it went sideways. If it's that type of situation, you got it wrapped up and compressed and you can drive him down to the next facility, do it. Do it. You don't have to take, in a crisis situation, what they're trying to force you to pay. And I know a lot of you are thinking, Jen, this is kind of, I am not, oh, this is so wrong. So I believe everything in life happens for a reason. There are lessons that we learn along the way that build into a giant gift of information for us. Although life teaches us more than a spreadsheet or these videos ever will, a lot of it is just myths, urban legends, and things that have been dramatized, however you want to say it, to put fear into you for the sensational point of it. Let us not believe everything we hear. Unpack it, challenge it, find out what actually works for you. There are lessons to be learned in every story that comes our way, but the truth is granular. Enjoy this video. And this is where it all comes together. Healthcare cost, not a big giant boogeyman, not the monster under the bed. It is simply a planning problem. It's a category. It is a line on your budget. You just have to start unpacking it and figuring out what the best options are for you. So whether you plan to move into this next chapter before Medicare, or in your case, you would rather do other things and continue working and keep on with the health insurance your company may or may not provide, your choices. But go into it with eyes wide open, find out what your numbers are, and you might be surprised that you can retire before you thought you could, and retire like you mean it. So this next video sums it all up, brings it all home. Let's go watch it. When you know it's a category in your budget every month, you plan for it. It doesn't sneak up on you. You should not be scared of it. You're not scared of your mortgage, or You may be scared of your mortgage, but you know what it is and you know what it was, Sonny. You went into that eyes wide open. Same thing with health insurance. It is not going to be a surprise every month because you know how much it's going to be. We don't need all the answers to move forward. What if clarity and not certainty is what you actually need? I ain't got all the answers, but I will say, after diving into this and realizing what healthcare costs actually are, I feel a lot better about things. I'm not stuck anymore. I'm not using healthcare as the reason I want to address my preparation and my fears for not moving forward. Seizing a life that I actually want, and I know you want too. It's time we quit making excuses and labeling it as healthcare, health insurance, because we've unpacked this and it's not what we were making it out to be. I started off thinking healthcare was going to be the thing that kept me working, that my husband and I could not, should not, and why try to work healthcare into our retirement budget if I can keep working and have part of it subsidized or provided by an employer. That it was way too unattainable for what we wanted to work out for our monthly number. I have been woefully misinformed, uneducated, ignorant being the lack of knowledge. I now have knowledge. Knowledge is empowering, and I can't use it as an excuse anymore, and neither can you. So I don't have all the answers, but I've got enough clarity to be comfortable in making this decision. How about you? What excuses have you been making about healthcare? Are you as fearful now after watching all 6 of the previous videos, or are you feeling a little bit more confident? So for me, healthcare went from being this giant boogeyman in the closet to what I'm comfortable with. It is a line item on my budget, on mine and my husband's monthly budget, that says this is how much healthcare is going to cost us. But what was even more awakening for me, and leave me a comment down below if this was awakening for you as well. Healthcare, it's not just your health insurance, which includes your premiums, your deductibles, and your copays. It's not just prescription drugs. And many of us didn't even include that into our total healthcare cost. Healthcare is a category that's going to include your multivitamins, your gym memberships, anything you're doing specifically on a regular basis that you need a little bit of monthly money for in continuing good health, whether it's like I said, gym membership, exercise classes, etc. Whatever it is that you invest in for yourself into healthcare, it all goes into that bucket. So yes, the biggest boogeyman for me was the health insurance, the prescription, and the associated deductibles, etc. for this. So in the previous 6 videos, we have unpacked that. There are ways to find out what you need to know to get your level of comfort in order, but the information's out there. You just gotta boss up, pull up those big girl panties, and go and find it for yourself. Line item in the budget, just like your housing, your car note, your food, your cell phone. All of it is a single line item in a budget that obeys the laws of math. If you spend too much in one category, you gotta pull it from another category because your whole bucket for a month is one container of money. And then you can allocate it as you see fit. And yes, healthcare costs are up there in your top 4 or 5 priorities. You can have a place to live. You gotta have food. You gotta have clothes on your back. You have to have some form of transportation. Depending on where you live, that could be public transportation, but that's still going to be a cost to you, so it's got to be a line item on your budget. And then healthcare. Healthcare comes before all of your fun things. Your fun things being vacations, gift for the grandkids, something else for little Fluffy, your little fur baby, whatever. You come before all of that. But healthcare costs don't have to be the big unknown that you have not a clue how to budget for it. because we have dove into the different avenues that you can go find out this information. It is readily accessible. If you're retiring before age 65, all of this information you need. But if you decided that you're going to work until 65 when Medicare kicks in, that is okay as well. But all of these questions we've covered in this series are still applicable for when you make your choice on Medicare. We will get to Medicare down the road. I personally am not there yet. I've dove into it with a couple of loved ones, parents, in-laws, etc. But I've not personally dove in with the lens of what does this look like for me? So that will be a future video, I am certain. But right now, if I had to leave my employer in the warm, loving bosom of their health insurance and go out into the cold, harsh world and find my own health insurance, I now know I can. And it's nowhere near the amount that I had assumed it was going to be. So if you are planning your glide down, if you're in your last year, 3, 5 years, but you see the end in sight, go ahead and start shopping this information and then keep your ear to the ground for the next however long it takes you between now and go time for any changes in regulations and things. I do know that when it comes to the ACA, the Obamacare, the exchange, there were some subsidies that expired at the first of this year that really impacted the cost of health insurance. I understand that our government is working feverishly to get those put back into a bill somewhere, but for right now, the cost did increase. So we have to also prepare, just like you prepare for your power bill to go up over time, your gas for your car to go up over time, groceries with inflation, all of that also impacts, or various things can impact the cost of healthcare. So even though it costs XYZ today, it could cost a bit more in the future. So you have to keep your eye on it. So when you shop your next policy, make sure that you have looked as thoroughly as possible, and you may even consider your combinations of deductibles to co-pays versus monthly premiums. Check out the video that was discussing, because this is the big recap. So when you know it's a category in your budget every month, you plan for it. It doesn't sneak up on you. You should not be scared of it. You're not scared of your mortgage, or you may be scared of your mortgage, but you know what it is and you know what it was, Sonny. You went into that eyes wide open. Same thing with health insurance. It is not going to be a surprise every month because you know how much it's going to be, and you adjust your budget accordingly. We've been doing this our entire lives. The month-to-month budget, that whether it was formalized, written on paper or not, you've been following money in, money out your entire life. If you haven't been doing a budget, go down to the description. Master Your Money Plan is a free workbook for you to get started on doing that monthly budget. There's also a life experiences to income workbook for those of us who are not going to go gently into that good night and just completely retire. We're actually going to continue producing income with something on our own terms or on our own time. That workbook will help you decipher whether you worked at home or outside the home, what skill sets you have after 30, 40 years of actually working that you can use now to generate some side money. And this next point, it took me a minute because I had to swallow, I don't want to call it pride, but my sense of security, which is normally based on knowing every nuance of every possible scenario. No, we don't have to know everything right now. We know enough to make an educated selection, an educated decision. If prices increase in 18 months, 2 years, we do need to know that costs can fluctuate. So we do want to ensure that we're keeping an eye on things, but we don't have to know it all right now. It should not keep you from moving forward. This is no longer the deal breaker I once thought it was. This is just another point to budget for. And that makes it very, very manageable in my book. So we don't need a 10-year plan. We need a 12-month plan because that's all we're going to be able to get. You can make adjustments in your own lifestyle. If part of your healthcare cost is this big long list of self-prescribed supplements because you've been watching one too many shorts or TikTok videos of all of these miracle cures, do yourself a favor and do a complete analysis of that. And I'm not talking dive into the research studies, etc. No. I personally just took pictures of everything I was taking, the back of the bottle with the ingredients and the percentages and all that, dropped it into an AI engine. I personally use ChatGPT, not sponsored, not affiliated, but love it. And it spit back out an analysis for me. Oh, it was so wonderful, of things that were redundant. My multivitamin was doing a lot more work than I was giving it credit for. I didn't need to add this, and this because I was already getting more than enough in the multivitamin. And it would also identify things that were possibly under the recommended daily allowance that I maybe would want to perk up or pick up based on what my personal health needs are. It would also analyze what was maybe being underprovided by some of these supplements that would surprise me. And then also it debunked. It debunked some of the things I was taking that I thought, oh, well, that's an added ingredient that's doing wonders. No, doing absolutely nothing. Some of the supplements and the claims they had were just snake oil. It had no verification. Nothing could be bona fide with that. So some of that I took off my amount. I was surprised at how much I was spending on supplements. It was like $4 or $5 a day, $250 a month. How the heck? No, I do not want to put that in my budget when my play money is less than that. Do your own analysis, even if it's on a notepad. This is what I take. This is the list of ingredients. This one has it. This one has it. However you want to do it, but it needs to be done. So we have to keep refining. You have to stay on top annually of the insurance policies you choose, the cost of the policy, what it covers, deep dive there because you need to be in the know, prepared for when something happens and you need to seek either emergency attention or urgent attention. You need to not have the surprises that if you go to urgent care versus the emergency room, it's going to cost less. Video in the series talks about that. Make sure you go and you binge that. But you need to be prepared not only with what your insurance policy covers and what you can expect in copays and deductibles, but you also need to be prepared at the cost of ebb and flow of prices, total supplements, and your prescription drugs. If your doctor has you on prescriptions, don't change a thing without talking to them, but talk to them. You need to also have those conversations with, thank you very much for this latest and greatest prescription, but if I had no insurance, how could I afford this? Out of pocket, it's ginormous. So you need to be aware of that and have the conversations with your doctors. Video in this series about that as well, because I personally, as a contractor, but I always made sure when my doctors needed to put me on a prescription, especially if it was a long term, I ensured it was generic available, doctor generic approved, and that if I walked into my local big W store or a grocery store pharmacy, that I could get a prescription filled for an affordable price. So our plans evolve, life changes, prices change, we roll with it. We Gen Xers, we have been doing this our entire life. We know how to squeeze a dollar. We don't want to go into our next phase fearful of not having enough money. You just have to look at your budget, be realistic with your budget. If you have a glide down ramp, off-ramp window that you know you're going to work another 18 months, 2 years, 6 years, whatever it is, start living on your retirement budget. Make certain that it is something that you can live, that it does not restrict or keep you from doing some of the basic things you enjoy doing in life. We're not all going out there and living the high life. We're not going to go on champagne cruises and caviar dreams, or whatever the tagline was, a lot as a lifestyle. We might occasionally treat ourselves, but what does your day-to-day look like? Start living on that now, and then you can bank everything you're not going to spend and start piling up your cash fund, especially if you're jumping off early. If you're jumping off before you plan to start collecting your Social Security, or 59 and a half, where you can start tapping into your retirement accounts, you're going to need cash. If you're not producing an income, that cash is what's going to see you through to pay these health insurance premiums and these healthcare costs and everything else you need. So start living on your retirement budget now. Build the confidence that you're going to be okay with what you anticipate, and then build up the cash between now and go time. So this is video 7 in a 7-day run, 1 video a day, talking about healthcare costs and how we can face this and be empowered and emboldened and confident with what we need to do as we move forward, wanting to either retire early or just retire, period. With that said, we're going to do a YouTube live, and I would love for y'all to join me with that. I am Jenny. I've got a little to say about a lot of stuff, and this season of life is all about retiring. And by retiring, I mean no longer work for somebody else. I will continue to work, but it will be on my time, on my schedule, and something I'm really passionate about. Share this video with somebody in your life who needs to hear this information. If you're a Gen Xer, keep coming back. Even if you're not a Gen Xer, you young ones that are watching, good for you, because all of this information, if we had had it and really absorbed it back in our 20s and 30s, this would be a completely different video channel. You would see us, I don't know, out in Greece or Belize or somewhere, sitting back, sipping champagne, if that's your thing. I personally would probably have 17 acres filled of a dog rescue for senior dogs. But this is the time in life we all need to absorb this information and apply it. But if you're over 50, come on, we have got wonderful years ahead of us. Even though we've got more sunsets behind us and we do sunrises in front of us, none of us are going to live forever, but we're dang sure going to live the best life we possibly can confidently. Stop recording. And seizing the life. Yeah, I said seizing. Because some legislation that happened 15 years ago expires or enacts. Okay, we don't need to know that now. It was fish oil, and by fish oil, no, because I do intake fish oil. That's a good thing. No, it was snake oil. There we go. Who takes snake oil? Back in the day, there was one cure will solve everything. There were snake oil salesmen. So yes, even if it's just on a freak, I'm going to stop saying freaking, ginormous. I've had them prescribe prescriptions for me before. First gen on the market, X number of months, and I went to fill it, and prescription price was affordable, still steep, but affordable. But the original price, oh, $2,200, $2,600, and this was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, who was very occasionally provided health insurance through whichever agency was pushing my paper. Insurance, and especially prescription insurance, was, oh yeah, I was riding high when I had that, when I didn't have to pay for it completely out of pocket for myself, possibly for the rest of my life or until I change my wicked ways type of prescription, that, and not have to go sell a kidney in order to get this prescription, or a firstborn that I never had. If healthcare has been the one thing that's been holding you back, or the biggest elephant in the room you haven't wanted to face, you can't unring a bell. I have opened your eyes, whether you wanted to or not, kicking and screaming, to some of the facts and the falsehoods we have learned about healthcare cost. And that it's not just the single line item of how much are my premiums going to be. No, you're in control of a lot of this. That includes having the conversations with your doctor about generics and evaluating your supplements. So down in the description, I have some healthcare workbooks for you to get you started. There's a free one down there, but I've also created a workbook course for you to take and make it your own. Walk through it. Like, share, subscribe. Send this video to somebody in your life who needs to see it. Maybe you're fearful your parents are about to make a very costly decision and either choose the wrong policy or keep working because they don't think they can afford it. My mother always said education is expensive, but this one's free. Thank you. I'll see you again soon. Stop recording.